Welcome to Meet the Candidate with your host, Sue Lonnie Madsen. Meet the Candidate is your opportunity to see local candidates and hear about the experiences that have shaped their lives. Meet the Candidate is a nonpartisan community project brought to you by our friends at Greater Spokane Incorporated, Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, We Believe, We Vote, and Better Spokane. Now, here's Sue Lonnie.
Okay, welcome to Meet the Candidate. My guest for this session is Keith Swank, who is a candidate for U.S. Senate. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you.
Glad you could join us here in Spokane.
Thanks.
As we were just discussing, it's a big state. Where did you grow up, in Washington or elsewhere?
No, I grew up in Pennsylvania, very rural Pennsylvania, and I grew up on a farm and with a dirt road out in front of my house, and actually it's still a dirt road to this day.
Okay. What kind of farming was your family involved in?
Well, pretty much just small farming, like self-sustaining. I had grandparents that had about 30 head of cattle, and we milked them by hand, and we sold milk, and we raised our own crops and our own animals and chickens and eggs and all stuff like that.
Well, that would answer a question I usually ask later, which is what was your first job? But if you're living on that kind of a farm, I can picture the kind of jobs that you had. Yeah,
that was my first job. I guess my first paying job from that was we would grow sweet corn, and then we'd set up on a street corner, which can you imagine a street corner out in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road, but people would come by and we'd sell corn. So that was like my very first job that I got some money for.
You got to keep the money if you made the sale?
Yeah, right, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's an important connection to make.
Absolutely.
So growing up there and going to school, what were some activities that you were particularly interested in?
Well, being out in the country, and like I said, we raised all of our food ourselves. I like to hunt and fish. I grew up doing that, being outside. But my favorite thing to do was to play Little League Baseball. So I got to do that. But we had to drive about 30 miles to go to where the team practiced at, so it was a hassle. So to play sports was very difficult. And my mom had to do a lot of driving us to get us around, so I really appreciate that because I love baseball.
I think there's a lot of people in the state would sympathize with your mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
From personal experience. After high school, did you go on to other education training?
Well, what I did was I joined the Army, and that's why I'm out here.
That counts as education training.
Yeah, I joined the Army, and I was an airborne infantryman, and I was stationed at Fort Lewis, the 9th Infantry Division, which is what it was back in 1988, and I was long-range recon surveillance unit.
Okay, how long did you serve?
3 years active duty, 4 years reserves.
Okay. And that's what brought you to Washington, and what led you to stay?
Well, when I got out of the Army was in August, and school had already started back in Pennsylvania because they work on semesters, so it started earlier in August. So I missed that school year, so I enrolled and went to college at University of Washington. Oh. So that's why I stayed, was to go to school there.
Okay, what did you study?
Psychology. And while I was at the University of Washington, I was unemployed for a time period and couldn't make my rent, and I ended up with a job with the Seattle Police Department.
Really?
Yes.
It's amazing how things sort of move in different directions. Were you with the police department long?
I'm still there.
Oh, you're still there?
Yeah, I never even expected to be a police officer, but I needed a job, and I had to fill out applications to look for a job. And to make a long story short, I got hired by the police department, and 28 years later, I'm in my 29th year now, and I'm a captain there, the police department.
So apparently it was a good fit for you.
It absolutely was. It was just perfect.
What do you find the most fascinating about that work?
I think the most fascinating is just being able to help people in the community, help them solve their problems, put bad guys in jail, make the place safer. And I'm a captain in charge of nighttime. It's called a duty captain. So I'm the highest ranking officer in the city of Seattle at nighttime, and I'm in charge of the whole city. And we just have wonderful officers at work that just do a great professional job every day, and it's a pleasure and an honor to work with them.
Okay, what do you think is the biggest challenge of that job?
I think the biggest challenge is getting out our message to everybody, to let them know that how important it is for us to stop crime, make the place safer, and do good policing all the time. And I believe that's what officers do. They do the best job they can all the time, and through difficult circumstances sometimes.
Okay. And one of the other kinds of ways people gain education besides work and school is travel. Are there any travel experiences that have in the country, out of the country, that have really stuck with you?
Yeah, I want to say this. I traveled to Panama when I was in the Army, And if you remember back in 1989, before the Panama invasion, I was there for that, for gathering information on that. I didn't know that was going to happen, though. And then the only other time I left the country was I went to Ireland one time with a friend of mine. But my favorite traveling is just to travel across this beautiful country. I've been through almost every state. And I think every state in America has beautiful things to see, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to get to see them all, but when I retire someday, I want to travel the United States and just spend time in every state. I think this is a beautiful country, and it's just wonderful to get out and see it all.
Well, as a statewide candidate, you must be doing a lot of traveling in Washington these days. What kind of places have you been hitting up so far?
Well, I've been up and down the west side, and I came over here today from Puyallup up to Spokane, and I'm going back over the mountains tonight, and I'm going to be going to Aberdeen tomorrow, and then I'll be going up towards Bellingham later on this month, and then I'll be going over towards Yakima area a little bit later on in the month. So I'll be traveling throughout the whole state, trying to reach every county.
Okay. Well, you've had a good long career and well settled. What prompted you to say, "Oh yeah, pick me, I'll run for elected office"?
Well, I've been wearing a uniform my whole life, defending America and our communities, and I believe that Washingtonians need people to defend them in Washington, D.C., and I think it's just the right place and the right time for me to go back and do that.
Okay. I'm going to come back up to our... I think our last question actually follows really well on the heels of that answer, which is to explain how do you see the duties of this elected office of U.S. Senate, and why should voters choose you?
Thank you. My name is Keith Swank, and I am a Army infantry veteran and a Seattle Police Department veteran commander. I've worn the uniform my whole life, defending America, defending our communities, and that's what I want to do in Washington, D.C. for you. The establishment has been obstructing President Trump from keeping his promises to you, and I believe it's time that we pull the plug and drain the swamp. It's very important that we build a wall on our southern border for national security. The reason why it's so important is drug dealers, drug cartels, and drugs are coming across our border in numbers that's should be more than alarming to you. 65,000 Americans died last year from drug overdoses. Much of that drugs came from our southern border. We need to stop that. It's killing our family members. You deserve to have good roads and good infrastructure, and you deserve to have low-price energy and reliable energy. You deserve to be able to protect yourself and protect your family. I've been a police officer for 28 years. I've been making decisions that are life or death. My training has allowed me to make proper decisions. I can make decisions that are reliable and you can count on. And if you send me back to Washington, D.C., that's what I'll do for you. So please support us. Go to our website, keithswankforsenate.com. Please support us with your time and money, and thank you. God bless you. God bless America.
Well, thank you, Keith, for joining us here in Spokane, and safe journeys around the state.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching Meet the Candidate. Spokane Talks thanks our community-minded partners, Greater Spokane Incorporated, the Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, We Believe We Vote, and Better Spokane for helping make Meet the Candidate possible.